So in today's video, I'm going to give you 4 unusual, surprising, and even possibly what you may consider to be immoral ways to keep agents with you for their entire career. Now you may be asking, immoral, what are you trying to do, David? Propose some kind of garbage out there? Why would you want to do this? So the purpose of this video is I want to inform and let the public know of all the different ways out there that you can retain good talent agents. And that includes ways that I think are completely legitimate and other ways professionally and personally I'd never do. And I'd like to throw this out there because, you know, even if you're an agent watching this, you need to be aware of what strategies are used a lot. And also as an agency owner, you've got to make your decision on the different options that are out there. A lot of these I professionally and personally wouldn't do. But there are a lot of agencies that are using this, and they've got their reasons and their justifications, and some of them are legitimate. So because I'm interested in thoroughness and full disclosure, my plan here is to totally go over everything I've ever learned as a strategy to retain agents and to retain their capability to keep them, whether that's good, bad, or ugly. My name is David DuFord. I own Insurance Agency Builders. My content here is designed to help you understand how to be successful in the insurance agency business. I've been building since 2013 in the senior market, predominantly through final expense. I don't have anything to sell you. I don't recruit insurance agency owners. The only interest I have is basically sharing information that I've learned to pay it forward so you can avoid the mistakes I've made, but also amplify and exponentially increase the successes I did so that you more quickly make more money building, because it is one of the best opportunities, I believe, that is out there for the ambitious person. Okay, so again, preface, warning, Surgeon General's warning and all that stuff. Everything I'm about to describe to you today, I don't agree with, but in full disclosure, I think it's important that you have to see what options are out there to keep people on, whether it's in their best interest or not. Many times it's ultimately their decision, but I want to reveal these strategies to you because they're used in a lot of agencies, and you need to be aware of them because they could have a place depending on your total package offer and how you deal with the agent. So let's jump right in. So number one strategy, and you can, by the way, you can use all these strategies concurrently. You can use some of them, you can use all of them. It really doesn't matter. They're all independently exclusive of each other. So number one, and none is better than another. So first one is give your agents a track to run on. So here's the thing that's really important. If all you're doing building an agency is offering a job and there's no way to ascend them through a process of growth, increasing their, not just their income, but their earning power, the percentage commission they earned, if there's not a way to increase their status among their peers, you're missing out on an opportunity to provide an agent a higher purpose than just simply put, getting a job selling insurance. So let's go over a couple of ways that you can do this. And that's not just in just perception as far as ascension goes, but it's also offering long-term opportunities too. So at one level, it's a play to ego, arguably, to some extent. But on the other hand, it's a play to the long term, which if you have a talented agent, you need to have some kind of strategy, not just to retain the agent, as much of many people are concerned about, but also to keep them. And this is one strategy or a multitude of strategies to do that. So the first is the ascension process. So when I say ascension, we see this in a lot of business models, especially if you've bought coaching or you've bought some sort of consultation, typically like the Dan Kennedy model talks about. They start their buyers, which Dan Kennedy used to run a marketing consulting company till he retired. I think he sold out to ClickFunnels guy. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyways, here's how his self-proclaimed strategy worked. He would get people in on a free offer to maybe join their No BS newsletter. And through that process of joining the newsletter, you would then be presented with opportunities to upgrade your subscription, maybe to the gold package or the platinum package. You would also be offered opportunities at a discount for a limited time to join some sort of mastermind that would be exceptionally more expensive. And then from there, there's an exclusive mastermind opportunity or a one-on-one opportunity at an even higher price. And so the idea here was to get a volume of prospects in on the front door, and a minority of those that come in through the front door, they have the option to ascend to do more and more business with them over the long haul. And the reason that Dan did that was his perception was, well, there's always going to be buyers that are big time buyers, people that are good clients that if you don't get them, they'll go somewhere else. So I say all this to compare it to insurance because you may be recruiting agents in with one product and they may get bored of the product. They may get frustrated with the product. They may grow out of the product. And if you don't have necessarily an avenue to build them up to the next level of some sort, you're missing out. So and if you don't have in prescribed processes to improve their business model too, that may open the door for them to switch or look at opportunities to go elsewhere. So I'll give you a couple of examples how Ascension looks in our business model. So for example, in DeFord Insurance Group, we have an Ascension model based off of compensation and production done. So we start our agents at a given commission level, but we increase their commissions as they hit certain milestones. First, it's 50 applications. Then it's 170 applications in 6 months, then 270 applications in 6 months. And with each of those milestones they hit, they get a raise in commission. So the agent that looks at joining us versus another, they see that our compensation model favors those who are top producers. And the thing is with top producers, you want to make sure they have a track to run on to work towards, to be motivated, but also that they are being rewarded for their hard work. And that's going to help you keep more of your people on because they see something to strive for, they can ascend towards, which is a higher level commission. A lot of the more mass recruiting models do what I'm about to describe here, and they do it very well. They have titles that they give their agencies or their agents as they hit certain production levels. They become partners, senior vice presidents, executive vice presidents, right? You can create a litany of titles to describe these different levels. You can reward them with badges. There's one company in particular I'm thinking of that gives their people, they have badges like insignia, logos, and then they get different things on them. It's almost like Boy Scouts and flair, right? And you can laugh at this stuff, but people want status. They want to be shown as being in the pack at the higher level of the hierarchy. So this stuff, it plays to people's ego and status-seeking desires that every human being has to certain levels. And so this is a really good strategy to use to get people to feel like they are at a higher level than others and feel more significant. And again, you can poo-poo that and think it's silly and people are self-absorbed or have no self-esteem. I get it, but this is why this stuff exists, because it actually works with a lot of people. Another thing on here is competitive pressure. So one of the things you want to do is produce production reports. Production reports. Your best agents are highly competitive against themselves, but in many cases competitive against others. Some people don't rise to the occasion until there is a threat. In this case, again, threat that they may not be in the top. And that motivates them more if they were just, as opposed if they were just on their own producing and trying to beat their own records. So I think publishing weekly, daily, monthly production and people sharing that and having that out there is going to get a lot of your people naturally motivated when they see and can compare themselves to others. The type A personalities that really want to fill your organization with, not the beta part personalities, but the alpha personalities, they thrive on that kind of competitive pressure to rise to the next level. And if they don't get that, there's this doubt and lacking of what they're capable of doing, and they'll be attracted by those models that really play to that kind of stuff. You can also do rites of passage. So you can have processes put in place to where, you have a rite of passage where the agent has to do something in order to be a part of the team. We have something like that in our agency. It's like a hell week where they're really trained well, they're really pushed to the limit. We fire them if they don't follow through and all the homework we give them. There's a lot of expectation that goes on. And then what happens is if they don't do that, then we toss them, we fire them. And so the people that make it through the gauntlet week or the boot camp, they're a lot better agent. They feel really strongly about themselves and they're into an elite group of agents. And everybody respects each other that much more because we know that they're only here because they're legit. They're players. They're not fakers, if you will. Another way to do ascension and in order to encourage retention of top talent is through a product ascension strategy. Now, we do this at DeFord Insurance Group to a certain extent. Strategy is very simple. A lot of agents are going to be presented other opportunities And a lot of agents in my business model are starting in the life insurance section because it's a good first-year commission, easier product to learn and get up and running with. The issue becomes if you are getting up and running and you're having some success, you're probably, in many cases, many agents don't want to do a first-year driven product opportunity for forever. They're also interested potentially in building a passive income model too as well. And this is where Medicare comes in as well as ACA insurance. The idea is very simple. When an agent is done well, they're presented with the opportunity to go into and sell these products to tag on to their life insurance sales. So what this does, giving them that track to run on, is a long-term propensity of, hey, I can sell other products to build a passive income model. So I'm not just making money, I'm making money without necessarily have to work longer term because I have a group of prospects and clients, really a group of clients that continually pay me for life as long as I take care of them, right? And so this provides a longer term vision and removes from the more like the job-like thing to more of a career opportunity. Now, a lot of companies do it differently, where they encourage their agents to build agencies. That's another product ascension strategy, or an ascension strategy, not so much product, but duplication strategy, but keeps them glued into the business model, keeps them successful, and keeps them in lane for a track to run on so they can get some kind of success. Okay, so the second one, this is where this is where some of this stuff becomes a little bit of issue with some. But again, y'all already gave you the warning on this, so let's just jump right in. So the second strategy to keep good agents, the first was kind of like more volitional, meaning they choose to keep working with you because they see an opportunity with you. The other strategy is to apply what we call golden handcuffs. This is where you force their hand through contractual provisions that working with you is the better longer term opportunity than if they think that they can better their deal on their own. And so all companies to some extent use some of this stuff, not every single one, but I've seen a lot of companies will use these. And the whole purpose of this is to basically legally force somebody to still stay with you, even if they're not happy, if they don't like where they're going, because the cost of leaving outweighs the upside in going solo or switching things up. In other words, golden handcuffs. So let's go through some of these provisions here that I've seen most common. The most common is probably restriction of vesting. So what is vesting? If you're new to this, it's the ownership of your book of business. You can recruit agents with some agencies that won't let you own your book of business for 2 years, 3 years. Those are the big companies I know of right off the top of my head. And there's one in particular that takes 10 full years before the agent is vested in it, increases at a rate of 10% additional each year. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and beyond. So what is the psychological outcome of this? So first of all, if an agent gets started and they don't know anything about the business, like a lot of these people recruit, and they find out about the business, maybe that it isn't what they thought it would be, or maybe they think they could do better on their own, they're looking for ways to level up. These restrictive covenants in the contract will remove a large percentage of profitability that they would have experienced through the unearned commissions that will come forward as they continue to sell. And so what this does is it forces a compliance to the system to get that agent to stick around a little bit longer. It also gives you the opportunity, since the vestation is really owned by you and not by the agent, that if they do leave, then you own that book of business and the proceeds and cash flow from them. So it is a way to get some agents to stop from doing the jumping thing, or very ambitious agents from moving along and being more consigned to your business model, because if they don't, there's a great financial risk. Other things you can do, of course, and you should all do this if you're agency building and you're providing some sort of benefit to them. Maybe you're providing them the agent leads or the platform or something like this. You should be thinking of some kind of restrictive contractual covenants, non-competes with current agents, intellectual property protection put in place, those kind of contractual provisions. What you don't want to do, and one of the biggest risks that you have in building, is somebody who is building under you that has a large group or has a lot of production or something like that, leaving you because so much of your revenue was derived from that particular agency, and they can freely leave you. Whereas if you provided the ability for them to build through whatever you provided them, whatever value stack that you gave them, your business model is really at risk. And the only way that you can prevent that is if you get them to sign some sort of agreement. For example, you can't recruit our agents for 2 years, or you can't sell our prospects for 2 years. Some sort of contractual covenant that if the agent thinks that moving on is the better outcome, your backside is protected. And you really need this for the long haul. Again, my personal opinion. If you've got a agency you may end up one day wanting to sell, and there's no contractual provisions preventing an agency manager downline moving and taking a bunch of agents, how much of a business is it, right? So you got to keep that stuff in mind. There's a very well-known IMO, three-letter IMO in the life insurance space, where one of their downline legs left, took 1,500 agents. It was a big, you know what, and they eventually went out of business, I think, as the chargebacks and probably the lawsuits that came from it. And really cost, temporarily, was a big frustration for the IMO. Funnily enough, the way that IMO came into play was that owner basically did the same thing. Left in 2013 or 14, had a huge lawsuit lobbied against him from the owner of the other IMO. So, you know, what goes around comes around in a sense, but you got to protect your backside, especially if you're providing a brand, a platform for them to build and recruit, in my opinion. Another thing you can do is lead financing. So lead financing is a way to provide funding for agents to get started and up and running, but it is also a way, I think, to, again, restrict people's ease of access of leaving or going away. So, for example, especially if lead financing is tied with being vested or not vested, there's a lot of cost of leaving if you leave too soon, if you owe even more money due to some sort of lead balance. So again, another thing there. And also it makes life a little bit easier too. If you're providing lead financing, some agents just don't manage their money well. And if you're fronting their money on the front end for leads, and they really haven't had training to manage their own money, and many agents flat out fail when they leave that system to where they don't pay for the leads until they make sales, and it comes out of the commission that's generated. So having lead financing in a way just makes the business easier, right? You front the money from their pocket, your pocket, as opposed to the agent's pocket, and taking that away and then them fronting the money on their own. Completely different skill set. And a lot of people flounder at that. And so having that financing in place makes the business easier and keeps people. Last thing here is team building too as well. Again, the more people you can get into agency building, you could arguably say it makes it harder to leave. You can put these restrictive covenants in. They're making a lot of money. Again, people who are doing really well financially, even if everything isn't perfect, the likelihood of them leaving and taking a huge pay cut is next to nothing. People will withstand and endure a lot if it means that they get paid well. So having more success in some ways, again, people, you know, they sell out in a sense, right? And so having them do something like that is, again, another strategy to keep them. Okay. Now, number 3 here is the obvious strategy to keep your long-term people successful and the talent on for as long as possible. And that's treat them like you would want to be treated, the golden rule. This is what I do in my agency. I tell it like it is. I let people know exactly what our expectations are up front. It's very, very rare that I get somebody I've recruited on that says, Dave, this is nothing like I expected. This is very frustrating. I felt like I've just been lied to. I don't want any of this stuff. I'm gone, whatever, right? And people leave with chargeback debt or whatever debt, right? Like, we get chargebacks, but we don't get a lot of agents that come in and they go through this whole process of just like, this is terrible. It's because our recruiting policy is very direct and the expectations are laid out. And I keep people long-term because ultimately what agents realize, I believe, agency owners too, is that this is a business model based off of trust, first and foremost. Commissions matter, leads matter, all that stuff matters. But if you've been around long enough, you probably know how to do business like that. And the real critical element to your success is finding somebody to work with that you trust, that won't stab you in the back, that won't steal from you, that won't take your downlines, that won't abuse you. You need people like that in your life. That's what I've discovered. I've been with the same upline since 2015. But prior to that, I had jumped around like 3 times, I think, between 3 different IMOs, and I was a jumper. But then it dawned on me, if I'm supposed to build an agency that, you know, I want people to trust me and to help them, I need to be able to exhibit the same behavior patterns too, of consistency and having a relationship. And no relationship's ever going to be perfect, but it can be good enough. And that's kind of how it is with us. Everything's not perfect with my IMO that I partner with some of my most of my contracts, but it's way better than the devil I don't know, right? So do what you say what you mean, follow through on your expectations. Don't waffle on that stuff. Be completely predictable, as W. Clement Stone said. That's what you want to be, because that will harness those agents and help you keep them, because you just don't get that all the time in this business. There's so much drama and BS that's unnecessary, driven by egos and people's perceptions of a distorted reality, that having somebody who's stable and consistent, that does what they say they're going to do, is a huge value proposition. And that's what I try to do with my agents and my people in my business. And the last one here is almost an extension of an ascension strategy. And it's realizing that this is not a job that you're recruiting to, but a higher calling. So the best thing I could recommend to you, one book I would absolutely recommend any agency builder to read, is Coach by A.L. Williams. You guys should know A.L. Williams, recruited hundreds of thousands of agents through the 70s and 80s. I don't think any team has gotten as big as his. I think he had 290,000 people at the end of the 1980s, before he sold out to Primerica and made out like a bandit. And I mean that in a good way. And one of the things he used to say all the time is, like, he led his people on a crusade. So what's a crusade? Well, it's a holy thing, right? So it reaches a spiritual thing, and it's conquering the, pagans or the Muslims or the enemy, right? So he used this verbiage in his presentations, his talks, his communications with his agents, because this was more than just selling a policy, a term policy. This was defeating the evil people at the that sell this trash value whole life plan, as he used to call it, and the DOI cronies that protect them. His words, in so many words. Point being is he electrified hundreds of thousands of people that felt the same way, and reshaped the entirety of the business, largely because I think of this leadership and perception shift. Whether you agree with that or not is not the point. But the point is, good recruiters, larger agencies, they look at this more than just a job. This is a business opportunity. This is an opportunity to reach the height of your capabilities in life, to do something great for others. It's not just about selling, it's about taking care of people. It's helping families, right? And so infusing that kind of talk in what you do will help those people who maybe come into this to make money realize that there's more to it, and there's a significance and meaning out of it. We also see a lot of IMOs, especially the mass recruiters. Again, I'm not big on this stuff personally, because I think it's sort of a cheapening of the intent behind it, but I can understand why it would be used, because it has a place. It's infusing a religious element or a self-help element into the process. I think I was watching a Dan Pena video. He was talking about W. Clement Stone, how their new shtick, and this is Dan Pena saying this, their new shtick was self-help. And in putting that into Combined Insurance, which W. Clement Stone owned and created and started, in order to keep people in and always reaching for some level of self-help and reflection and outcome, but never could ever reach the top pinnacle, right? You're always trying to improve yourself. It's never significant. You never reach the finish line with self-help. And the point is, if infusing that with the insurance process, you could get people to stay long-term, because they're not just selling insurance, they're improving themselves, they're bettering themselves, they're becoming better, more whole people, or more religious or more spiritual. And I think this is where a lot of the cult stuff comes into play, because there's a lot of stuff here, obviously, that cross sections the cult when it comes to using this language as higher calling, etc. And why a lot of our business gets that critique. But a lot of people use this successfully, and I think part of this too is again, I don't use this stuff as an agency owner, but that's part of my branding. I'm anti-MLM, and so a lot of the things that MLM are known for, we don't do. But the thing is, more importantly, the reason you put this stuff into is human beings need this stuff. They need purpose in their life. A lot of people walk through life and they don't have purpose, they don't have intention, they don't have direction, and they vie for it, because, a lot of people are nihilistic. And what these companies that use this stuff realize is that this gives direction and purpose and meaning and significance. It truly is what we're all trying to do. And they're just basically monetizing it and putting the avenue in the form of recruitment in order to use that. Or they use that they use this stuff to recruit agents, then to keep them. And create this clarity of purpose and an in-group. They belong to something, right? So all this stuff, you can poo-poo it, which I do, but it is something that works. And the ones who embrace that, and you guys can think of the MLMs out there in life space that do this, they do a very good job of it. And like a lot of this stuff, there's good reasons to do it, even though you may kind of revolt at it, kind of like what I do. But all of these things, these are ways, again, that you can do to keep people, again, big thing here. In short, like what recommendations would I make to you? I don't know who you are, but what would I tell you to do? Here's some ideas. You absolutely have to have some kind of ascension strategy. You got to show an agent, not a job, but a process to have a fulfilling career. To what extent you use religion and spirituality and self-development is up to you. But the point is there's absolutely a competitive advantage when you show somebody that working with us is not just a one-stop deal, but there's a long-term opportunity to build at your own organization, to make incredible money, or like what we do is get into passive income products that allow you to live a lifestyle and not have to work constantly. Having that in combination with some sort of appeal to competitiveness, appeal to ego with statuses or titles, and also the ascension of seeing commissions increasing through hitting milestones. These are all ways to make a competitive advantage versus your competition, and especially keep the good people in your agency. Also, treat people like you want them to. That's pretty simple, right? I mean, that's the thing. Communication, this is very much like a marriage and recruitment. Long-term marriages that work, there's open lines of communication. People take time to show each other appreciation. It's not perfect. They argue. They don't necessarily agree on everything, but there's a mutual respect that's always respected. And it comes through a consistent line of communication and consistent outcome and actions. And again, appeal to that higher calling, I think, is important to some extent. Again, how you execute it is up to you. And then, the thing that you got to really decide on is what level of golden handcuffs will you use. I don't use really any of these. We do for our managers. We don't want to build up a manager downline who's an employee in our agency. We don't have a downline like in the traditional MLM sense. We have employees. They've signed on contracts. They won't recruit agents. We have to protect our assets that we've carefully built. We want them to earn great money, but we don't want them to take a third of our agency or half of our agency when they go independent. And that's not good for business, and that's if we ever get to the point of wanting to sell, that would be one point of contention, I think. Well, why would we want to buy this asset that in 6 months they may leave or something happens like that, right? So protect yourself to the extent that you need to, because you're building a very big asset. You're putting a lot of time and money in, and you don't want a downline agent to take away from that work that you spent and the time and money and blood, sweat, and tears into the business. I hope you enjoyed this training, got some value out of it. Again, insuranceagencybuilders.com. I've got some sort of free stuff there for you if you'd like to check it out. It's either going to be an advance notice on a book that we'll release in agency building. It might be also for free content. I haven't really quite decided at the filming of this, but you'll see it if you go there. Link should be in the chat below. And thanks for watching. We'll see you.